Hello Steelers, and welcome to this game of Chain of Command. Another one you may say, but this one is a playtest, so it's slightly different to the other games. This is actually for Joe the Wargamer, or Joe Bilton as he's known in real life. If you check out his Twitter, Joe the Wargamer, at Joe_the Wargamer I think it is, I'll put a link below anyway. It's his scenario for his pint-sized campaign for the Lardy magazine 2021. This is just a playtest version of it, so this video will probably come out after the Lardy magazine has actually been published, so I don't want to jump the gun on it or anything or give away any of his secrets for free. But this is a playtest that happened in October of 21, just so you know where we are with this. And this is the Kirk of Kirchborchen. It's a battle set in 1945, basically the very end of the Second World War. And I'm reading here from Joe's notes rather than trying to do it from memory, because I don't want to say anything that is wrong in this. Let me just give you a bit of a précis about this. It says, bitter fighting in Kirchborchen had already earned it the name of Bazooka Town. German soldiers are holding the church near the middle of the village over here, and Task Force Richardson needs to clear them from it, which is the Americans. So this is an attack on an objective, the objective being the church. The Americans have to clear it out. Apparently they had quite a few attempts at doing this, so this is probably going to be quite a difficult one for the Americans. As you can see, I'll show you the table. I've set it up as close as I can to Joe's map. Joe's map is absolutely amazing. You'll see it in the patrol phase that I do in a bit. But I've set up my table as close as I can to Joe's map, just to give you an idea. And basically what you've got is a load of buildings, quite a few ruins here and there, and open areas which are going to be quite murderous to get across for the infantry, I think. And there's a lot of light cover in fences and hedges cutting up the entire board as well, so it's going to be quite difficult for the Americans to get across. Interestingly, in this one we've got the Americans are normal soldiers, basically regulars, whereas the Germans is a Waffen-SS trainee Panzer Grenadier platoon. So they're actually slightly different. And he's got a few different rules in these. I'm just going to read these out to you again, just to be very, very sure that you... these may change. I'd say this is a play test, so this may change by the time that the Lardy magazine has come out, but this is how I've got it here in this play test. I'm just going to read this out to you. It says, trainees. The bulk of the soldiers in these platoons, the Germans, have been taken from a nearby training base, so they're very inexperienced. Consider them as regular troops with regards to hit rolls when they're in command radius of a junior or senior leader, but as green troops otherwise. So that's quite nice. It means that the Germans are going to have to keep their leaders close by to their units, and also ensure that they don't take any risks to get hit, because suddenly the abilities of their troops are going to nosedive. Also, he's got veteran NCOs. The junior leaders assigned to train the SS cadets were veterans from the Eastern Front, Italy and Normandy. They're skilled in surviving, having made it all the way through to 1945. When rolling to see if a junior leader has been hit, the junior leader is only hit if the number is less than the number of men killed, not equal to in the normal rules. So again, that's quite a nice little twist he's put in there, just to make it a little bit harder to hit those leaders, and to hopefully for the Germans to keep them alive, to keep their forces in a good state at least. Also, one further thing they have is diehards. When a German player deploys one of the regular squads, roll a d6. On a roll of 5 or a 6, that squad consists of two diehard teams, which is the entire squad, who will ignore all effects of shock, and they will fight on until all the men are dead. So that means they won't even break, and basically they will just continue fighting, so they don't even gain any shock in that case. So that's going to be pretty tough if any of those do turn up to be diehards. There's a couple of other things as well I'm going to mention here, really just to talk about the support options. This is more in specific for the Germans. The Americans don't really have a huge amount of difference from the core rule book. I think I've not gone through it, but I think there's a little bit more chance of you getting armour, because the Task Force Richardson had access to a lot of armour in this particular combat. or these combats anyway, that they were involved with, whereas the Germans are literally on their last legs. They've got some support options here. I haven't taken these, but I just want to read them out because they are interesting. So we've got we've actually got Hitler Youth Panzerfaust teams, so you can get those. So it's 2 children, each armed with a Panzerfaust each, and they're rated as green, so that's one of your support options. They're very cheap, obviously. We've got the Luftwaffe Flak Crew Infantry Squad. This is taken from the anti-aircraft flak emplacements around the Paderborn airfield, so you can see that they're basically bringing together any kind of soldiers that they can find, really, to fight at this point. And these are rated green. It's a junior leader with rifles and then 5 riflemen, so it's only a very small squad, scratch squad really. There's also Volkssturm Squad, which has a junior leader with a pistol, 3 men with SMGs, 3 men with rifles, Panzerfaust with 2 crew, and they're also rated green. And then an understrength infantry, regular infantry squad, a mixture of convalescing soldiers and those who have been on furlough. So we've got a junior leader with a machine gun, LNG team, MG42 with 2 crew and a rifleman, and then also a rifle team of 3 rifles. So the German support options here are limited, but they're cheap, but they've basically just got all these scratch squads that they've had to pull together. As I said, the table itself is quite a difficult one for the Americans to cross because there's large areas of open ground cut up by these terrain features, which they've got to spend at least a dice to cross them because they're obstacles. So it's going to be quite difficult for them, and they're only providing light cover as well. So there's probably going to be a lot of tactical movements on the American side and maybe covering fire as well to try to get across some of these open areas. Well, enough waffle from me. I'm going to do the patrol phase. I'll show you the table and the setup, and I'll show you the figures and the forces that I've chosen for this particular playtest, and we'll get on and we'll see if the Americans can knock the stuffing out of the Germans or vice versa. So here we have the Americans. This is their basic force. So first of all we have our platoon headquarters. This is made up of a lieutenant, senior leader, and a platoon sergeant, another senior leader with a carbine. Then we also have a headquarters squad, which is the guys behind them here. And this is made up of a sergeant with a Garand, and then 7 riflemen also with a Garand. And there's an option of being able to turn 2 of these men into a bazooka team. So they have done. So basically they've dropped the amount of rifles they've got, but created a 2-man bazooka team as part of it, because they didn't know what they were facing. So I just thought, well, they're going to go into this town, there's a possibility of German armour being about, so they decided to do this. Also the same as well, they've got 2 squads. The first one is commanded by a sergeant as a junior leader. They normally have 10 riflemen with M1 Garands and also 1 man with an SMG, so they're lacking their LMGs here. They also have the option as well to turn a unit into a bazooka team, 2 men into a bazooka team, which they have in both of these. Same again. I mean, they can be used arguably as anti-infantry, or they can fight as riflemen as well, just in case, really. But they are, I've decided to put them, give them a little bit of clout when it came to any armour that might be in the location. The Americans then rolled, also they have a mortar squad, which is a 60mm mortar with 5 crew, as you can see here, and a machine gun squad as well. So they do have support in the machine gun area, and this is a tripod mounted MG with 5 crew, and there's 2 of these commanded by a sergeant here. So that's another separate squad, which can deploy as a squad or as individual teams. They also rolled for 10 for their force supports, and they went for an M75, is it M76mm Sherman? I think it's a 76mm, let me just check my notes. 1 second. Yes, it's the M4 Sherman 76mm with a junior leader, so that's over here. And they also went for a flamethrower team as well. Knowing that we're going to be fighting through buildings, I decided to put something nasty into the American mix, and he is actually carrying a 30 cal. I've just proxied this figure in as the flamethrower, but it's a 3-man flamethrower team. So that's the American forces. Let's have a look at the Germans. Alright, the Germans on the other side, as I say, we're literally at the end of the war at this point, so this is a pretty typical German platoon for this point. This is commanded by a lieutenant armed with a machine pistol, a chap down here, and he also has a Panzerschreck team as well with 2 crew, so that at least they've got some anti-tank capabilities. They also have 3 squads, 1, 2 and 3 here. These are all led by Obergefeiter, armed with a machine pistol, and also with 2 Panzerfausts as well, which you can distribute amongst the teams. And these are made up each of 2 LMG teams, which is basically an MG42 with 2 crew, and then also 3 rifles, and that's in both of those, and they're exactly the same all the way through. So those MG42s are going to be throwing out a lot of firepower, and that's going to be tricky for the Americans crossing those open areas, as we said. And for their support forces, I did think about getting a load more anti-tank weapons in the form of the Hitlerjugend, but I decided to go for firepower, and I've gone for 2 LMG teams, tripod mounted MG42s, so they are actually going to be rolling I think 10 dice rather than 8 dice. They're each crewed by 5 men. Again, if I can get those into position as the Germans on some of that open ground, it's going to prove particularly difficult for the Americans to attack that objective. So that's the plan really, rather than being anti-tank, because overall they've got the Panzerfaust, which can Panzerschreck, which can jump up out in ambush. And they've also got each of these are armed with 2 Panzerfausts as well. So really quite a lot of anti-tank already in there to hopefully deal with that Sherman if it should ever appear on the table. Well, that's enough waffle. I'll show you the table now. Well, I'll do the patrol phase with I should rage. I would like to rage as patrol phase app, and then I will show you the table and the setup, and we'll get started. So the patrol phase begins with the Germans in blue in the church itself, and also in the back quarter of the table. The Americans in red, advancing with 4 patrol markers, as you can see here. They were trying to get across the table as quick as possible, with the Germans trying to shut them down as quick as possible. So basically hugging that top corner, well, top third of the table, the Americans were slowly advancing, whilst the Germans were just kind of fanning out really to connect with as many of the opposition's patrol markers as possible and shut them down. If you don't know, this is how every game of Chain of Command begins. It's to get you into a good position to start the actual game. You don't just start at the 2 ends of the table and work towards each other. And once each of these points are within 12 inches of one another, they have become locked down. And then once one side's patrol markers are all locked down, then we begin the game, or we can begin placing the jump off points, and then the game can begin. This is a patrol phase app that was developed by I Would Like to Rage. I'll put a link to it in the description below, and you can use it. You just upload a map. The map that you can see here is Joe's original map that he sent me as part of the notes for this scenario. You can see how beautiful it looks compared to my table efforts to replicate this. But here we've now closed down all the jumping off points. The Germans managed to stop the Americans from progressing any further than this. So we start to place, the patrol markers. We now start to place the jumping off points. So jumping off points are placed in a triangle created by the 2 closest enemy patrol markers, so you can see here, and you can only put them really behind cover or within 6 inches. If there is no cover, then they will go straight to the edge of the table. Thankfully on this table you can see there is quite a lot of cover because we've got quite a lot of buildings here, and I'm just choosing each one of these patrol markers to place the jumping off points for the Americans. So most of these are in buildings. As you can see here, I'm just slightly moving them about a bit just to try to get the best position to attack that church. I wanted to attack it on 3
directions. The Germans do exactly the same. They place 3 markers, jumping off points, and then they place a 4th one in the objective itself. So they decided to cluster theirs around the church itself, so they were able to bring in any support that they wanted to as the Americans were progressing. And this is the last one here, just down on this flank again, just to give some cover to that church as the Americans were pushing in there. So whoever held the church at the end is the winner.
So this is the table set up. The Americans are coming in from over here, down the main road here, and attacking this church, which is the objective over there, as we said. So as you can see from the table itself, it's going to be quite difficult. There's a lot of fences, a lot of hedges. Do the Americans use those and slow their movement, or do they go through the open areas and risk being shot at? That's going to be the question, and that's going to be what they're going to attempt to do. So they're jumping off points from the patrol phase. We've got 1 in this building here, so they've only got 3. They had another one in this building here, and then their 3rd and final one is behind this small barn here at the back of the table. The Germans, on the other hand, they've clustered theirs as much as they can around the church itself. Let's just get it back in focus. 1 second. My camera's deciding doesn't want to play today. There we go, back in focus. So we've got 1 behind the barn here. We also have 1 here on this edge of the churchyard, and then a 3rd one over on the edge of the churchyard there, and then finally 1 last one in the church itself, the actual objective. So this is an attack on the objective. The Americans have to capture the objective, the church itself, and also clear and drive off the Germans, either through loss of numbers or by reducing their force morale. And quickly looking over here, the force morale, I've already rolled for this. Fortunately for the Americans, they're only starting on 8, so it's quite low as it begins, and the Germans are beginning theirs on 9, so they are in a last ditch attempt, really. Okay, we shall start the actual command rolls and start the game and see what happens in this one. Okay, the Americans are starting, so they begin. Both sides have got 5 command dice to start with, so that makes things a little bit easier. The Americans got the initiative, so let's see what we get. 5, so straight away chain of command point, always useful. And 3, junior leader, 2 1s and a 2, so that's quite a good combination actually for their first turn. That could bring on a couple of junior leaders to get that thing going forward, or even bring on the Sherman as well, because that's going to provide some good fire support. Let's have a little think about it. Okay, in the first turn the Americans have used a 1, so 1 of their teams, and they brought on their mortar, because I've played Chain of Command enough times now to realise that you need fire support. So they brought the mortar on, that can just sit there and start plugging away at the Germans when it needs to. They've also used the 3 to bring on their Sherman 76 as well, simply because they may not get a chance in the future, and it's at least some firepower that they can get it up to the position close to that tank, to the church, and start laying fire. And then they've used a 3 to use a junior leader to bring on this section, and they've deployed these from this building over here. These are going to try to attempt to get round and flank the German position from this side here. So we're kind of using the buildings over here to get these guys into position somewhere to be able to fire down as the other ones are moving across that open ground there. So that's kind of the plan. They've also gone on to Overwatch as well from their junior leader. He's put them on Overwatch, just watching down this road just in case anything does appear down there. I don't think there's any German jumping off points, but it's better to be safe than sorry anyway. So that's the American turnover. Time for the Germans. Let's just see what they do. Maybe a little bit cautious on this. Well, they've got double 6, so they're retaining that phase. The 4 is a senior leader, 3 a junior leader, and a 2 is a section. Do they really want to do anything at the moment? Is it worthwhile just waiting, I think? Because they kind of want to crowd everything into that, into the church at this point. So yeah, they're not going to actually do anything. I'm just going to ignore those, and they're going to go on to their second phase, hopefully trying to get what they want here is chain of command points. So that's taken them up to 2, so they've got 5, 2 5s. Double 2, 2 sections, and a 4 is a senior leader as well. Again, they're not going to do anything. They're going to let the Americans show their hand first of all. So I decided I'm going to be a bit more cautious with the Germans in this game. Normally I'll put things on very quickly, but this time I decided not to. So we're back to the Americans. They have 2 chain of command points. They've got 2 5s, so that takes them up to 3. Then we've got a 6 on its own is doing nothing. They have a 1 and a 2, so that is either a junior leader or a section and a team. Let me have a think about that. There's quite a mix there. Let's have a little think. Alright, so the Americans have decided here to bring on a section and a team. They brought on their Flamethrower because I measured and they can't actually do any ambushing with that because everything's just a little bit too far away from the German position, so that's going to have to move forward to do anything. They've also brought on a section here, so they have a section on both flanks of the church at least, and also their armour support and the mortar support. They want to get their 3rd section on probably somewhere in the centre, and then they can start making the attacks. But anyway, over to the Germans, see what they do with their turn. Alright, so the Germans, the Americans are still out of line of sight at this point, so that might affect them. Well, 5 is giving them what they want, so that takes them up to a 3 on their chain of command point. Then they have a 1, a 2, a 3 and a 2, so they don't retain the phase or anything. They've got a good spread there, but I think, yet again, they're going to actually, again, they're going to leave it. They're going to leave it and see what the Americans do. Force the Americans' hand at this point. Just going to stay off board just for now. So the Americans, they have a 5, so that takes them up to 4 chain of command points now. Slowly building those up. And then we've got 2, a 2, a 2 and a 3. So we've got 3 sections and a junior leader, or we could combine some of those into senior leaders as well. That might be useful to get some people moving, I think. Okay, so we've used a section dice, a 2, just to move that section forward. They've got to the edge of the building there, they're just sitting there. They've also used a 3 for their junior leader to bring on the headquarters section. Squad, should I say, it's Americans, and they've gone into tactical because they are kind of in the open there, but they've gone to tactical, so that's a -1 to hit them anyway. And then they've also brought on with 2 2s turning into a 4, brought on their sergeant, platoon sergeant, and he has ordered this section forward and also the Flamethrower team as well. So they are now, you can see, just in front of the church itself. So there is open ground, but at least they're in position, and fingers crossed they won't get too badly shot up. But let's see what the Germans do to react to that. Well, now the Americans have kind of shown their hand really as to what they're doing. They've got a 3-pronged attack coming in, so I think the Germans are probably going to start filling it on the table at this point. So let's just see anyway. 2 6s, they retain the phase, good for them I suppose, and 3 4s, which is not good for them because they only have 1 senior leader amongst them. So they are going to retain that phase and re-roll again. They're not going to do anything with those 4 4s, that was pretty poor. Let's just see what we get. 6 on its own does nothing for them, but they do have a 2, a 2, a 2 and a 3, so 3 2s and 1 3, so that is 3 sections and a junior leader, or a combination of possibly a senior leader, but I doubt they'll bring that on. They might bring on all their sections and some other bits and pieces. We'll see what happens with that. Okay, the Germans have finally shown their hand. They've lined the wall, or the hedge as it is in the map, of the church with a section. They've also brought a section on here just behind, out of line of sight, ready to support, and they've brought on a 3rd section here in this building as well, overlooking. They can't see anything at the moment, but these ones can, and they can fire at these Americans here that are lining the hedge that were pushed forward by the sergeant, including the Flamethrower team as well. So I'm rolling all of these together. We've got 2 LMGs and 6 rifles firing, so we've got a lot of dice. We're hitting on 4 5s and 6s because they are at close range, but they are in light cover. So let's have a look at what we've got. Ooh, that's not looking great actually for the Germans. This is going to be spread between the two teams, and we're looking at 4, 5s and 6s in there. So let's have a look. 1, 2. That's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hits in total. So 5 are going to land on this section here, and 5 are going to land on the, unfortunately, on their flamethrower. So we'll do the flamethrower first of all. They're in light cover. 6 is a kill, 4, 5 is shock. So let's have a look. So we've got 1 kill and 3 shock as well. So that has pinned them. So I'll take that kill off, put that shock on while I'm able to remember it. So that's 3 shock there. So they are now pinned, fortunately for them, but at least they're still relatively effective. They just need to reduce that pin. And then we've got the other 5 hits on the section across here. Let's have a look. This is 2 kills this time, and we've also got a 1 shock. So that's 4. So 1 shock on that section and 2 kills as well. Let's see if it's on their junior leader. 2 and less, and it is. I'm not going to check for the bazooka because anybody else can also pick it up as well. Same as with the SMG guy. They'll probably remain to the very end or decide to die if they do die. Let's just check if it's on the leader. 2 hits, 1 or a 2 it is. Yes, the junior leader has been hit, so let's have a look, see what happens to him. A 6 is he is wounded. So he reduces his number of activations, and we've also lost another man as well out of the section, so 2 American casualties straight away. So that means we have to do a bad things happen roll for them. So the bad things happens for a junior leader being wounded is a 6. Oh, that's the worst it could be, and that is -2 points off the Americans' morale straight away. So they've now dropped straight down to 6. This is going well so far. Well, that wasn't a great turn for the Americans, was it? Let's see what they do with their next phase, though. Okay, so we've got a 4, another 4, so that's 2 4s, and 3 3s. So that's 3 junior leaders and 2 senior leaders. That's actually pretty good for what they need, because if they get on their second senior leader, they can start things moving and do a little bit more firing back and reduce some of that shock as well, I think. So let's see what they decide to do with that lot. Well, the Americans have had quite a good turn there, actually. So what they've done, there's been a lot going on. They used their first senior leader for the sergeant to move over and reduce shock on the flamethrower team. He fortunately couldn't get them to fire because he's only just been able to reduce shock, so he couldn't. They've now unpinned, but they are going to be firing at some point. Well, they're pinned until the end of the turn, even if no matter what anyway, but that's beside the point. So he's reduced shock on them. We're also getting one of the junior leaders to fire from this section as well. They're going to be firing at the Germans on the wall. The other junior leader has brought on the final MG team, so they're actually on now. They're going to be able to get into position and lay down some covering fire. The other junior leader was the junior leader in the M4. That has piled forward. That's now in a position to fire. It can't fire this turn because it moved 3 dice, so it is basically sitting there waiting until its next turn. And then they brought on their senior leader, their second final senior leader, so everything is on now for the Americans, who has moved the HQ section forward to the hedge. Unfortunately, he couldn't use his command initiatives to get them to marching fire, but they're at least in position now to fire. And then he also moved forward the other section here down the main road as well. They only managed to run 3 inches, unfortunately, so they're a little bit in the open there. I'm going to give them light cover if they do get some firing from over here because of the buildings and things that are in the way. But we've got some firing from this section. Also, finally, the senior leader, Lieutenant, is getting the mortar to fire as well. So we're going to do that first of all. 60mm mortar, 2 dice. First off, it's only hitting on a 5 and a 6. Sorry, 4, 5 or a 6 because they're in line of sight of somebody. So that's 2 hits on the Germans. So there's 1 hit on each team. First team reduces cover. So they were in light cover. They are now in no cover. So they're in the open. First team. 4, 5, 6 is a kill. Sorry, 5 or 6 is a kill, so that's 1 kill first of all. Let's put him down for a second. And then over on the other team, another kill as well. So let's just see if either of those are on the junior leader. 1 or a 2 it is. 6, no it isn't, so it's just on 2 of the rifles. We'll get rid of those first of all. So that's the first hits. Then we've got this section over here is firing. So they're firing with their 10 Garands and an SMG as well. The SMG is firing, hitting on a 5 or a 6. That's why I've got it in blue. Everybody else is hitting on 4, 5 or a 6 and hitting in light cover. So let's just see. So we've got one hit from the SMG, and everybody else is that's a reasonable spread of 5, 6 hits. So that's 3 hits on each team. So the first team here, first of all, 6 is a kills, 4, 5 shock because they're in that light cover. So that's a kill and a shock, and then a nothing, and then the final one to see how many kills we get before we roll for that junior leader. And then 2 5s is 2 more shock on the other team and nothing there. So let's see if that hit is on the junior leader. Remember with the Germans, he'll only get hit if he rolls less than the number of kills. You can't get less than 1. So it is another rifleman that has been hit. So the Germans have taken 3 casualties and some shock straight away. So at least the Americans are slightly evening up the odds in this attack here. Right, after that round of shooting, let's have a go at the Germans, see what they get for their face. So they've got a 5. So that's giving them straight away a chain of command point. Takes them up to 4. Then we have 2 1s and 2 2s. So that could be couple of junior leaders or a couple of sections and even teams. I'll have a look, see what they've got left to bring on, and it may be a couple of teams might come out here. Right, okay, the Germans have basically used their 2 1s to bring on their 2 MG42 teams. So the one in the church firing out, and it is firing over the heads of these because that building is basically they're upstairs basically, and then they've also brought another one, stuck it on the edge of the churchyard. These are going to be firing over here. They've also brought on their senior commander, so the only thing they've got off the table now is their team of the Panzerschreck, which they are hoping will be able to ambush at some point if that Sherman comes up the road. So they're holding that off anyway. They're having this section here fire down into these guys as well, or maybe into these as well from this building. So I'm going to work my way through these sections. There's a lot of firing here going on. So we're starting with this section here. This is all from the senior leader. He's basically moved this section up against this wall as well on this side of the church. So they're going to be, they're not firing, they're moved. These ones are firing, even with, they're just slightly reduced because they've lost a couple of rifles, and also they've taken a bit of shock. So they're firing at these here, so we've got the section and also the flamethrower team and a junior leader and the senior leader in there. So we'll start with them. They're hitting on 4 5s and 6s first of all, so we've got 1 2. So we'll just get all our hits out first of all. That's quite a few, so let me get rid of those misses first of all. So we've got 2 4 6 8 9 hits. So that's going to be 4 on the flamethrower and 5 on the section over here. Actually, I forgot that the bazooka is a team in itself, so I don't know whether that's going to be 3 hits on each of these. I think I'm going to go with that. I didn't do it before, but I'm going to do it now to break it up, because that's, you know, the rules. So we'll start with the flamethrower first of all. So that is a kill. These are all in light, so this is a kill and a shock. So I'm going to have to keep count of these kills because we do have those juniors and senior leaders in there. So I'll just knock one of these guys down for a second. Right, second team is going to be the Bazooka Team, and that is a shock on them. So I've already got a shock marker on there, so I'll just add another one on, because this one would have been on the rifles anyway. The rest of the rifles there. So they've got their shock, now the rifles have, and then the rifles themselves, 6 is the kills, 4 is shock, so that's another shock, so that's 2 shock on there, and a kill as well on those rifles. So we've had 2 kills in total. Let's have a look if it's the senior or junior leader. 1 or a 2, and it is. 4, no it isn't, so it's just 2 dead for the Americans there already. But no teams destroyed, thankfully for them. So that was our first firing, that was from this section here. Then I'm going to fire with the first LMG. They are now firing down here again. into the same squads. I've got, let me get the dice together, these are 10 dice each. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm firing these separately because I want to see what happens with each one before I go on to the next one. So the first one here is firing. It's something you're right to do in rules. We're within 18 inch, so it's effective range, 4, 5, 6 as a hits. So we'll draw out all of our misses, and that's only 4 hits. So that's spread across. The Americans get to choose. They'll put 2 onto their rifles and 1 on each of the other teams. So the first team, Bazooka Team, a 2 is nothing. Second team, the Flamethrower Team, 5 is another shock on them. So that has actually broken them as a team, because they no, their sergeant is attached, so they haven't broken, but they are pinned. And then the rifles. So that is a 5 and a 2 and a 3. So that's nothing. No effects on them. That was from the first LMG, and now the second one. This is kind of what the Germans are pinning their hopes on, actually. The second one firing again at the same target, just because it's easier. They're trying to destroy these as much as possible. So we've got, this time we've got 5, 6, 7 hits. So again, spread across. So that's going to be 2, 3 hits on the rifles, 2 on the bazooka, and then 2 on the flamethrower. So the flamethrower, first of all, double 1, nothing. So they've got off lightly, relatively there. Then we've got the bazooka, 5, so that's another shock. They are not yet pinned. They're almost pinned, but then the rifles, well actually they're part of that section, so they're not. There's 4 shock in total on that section. The rifles have now taken another shock, so there's now 5 on that total section. But that doesn't pin them. There's more men in there than they need. So they're okay at the moment. Now the question is, we've got this the last German section firing under orders from the senior commander. He can pour fire into them. Again, it's going to be light. They can hit them, or they could pour fire into the section here. These are pretty damaged, and there's quite a lot here firing. So I'm going to fire at this section. I want to try and spread out the hits and the kills as much as possible. So this is just the headquarters section. There's a lot firing here because there's 2 LMGs and 6 rifles. Oh, sorry, no, there isn't. There's 2 LMGs and only 2 rifles. So let me just take 4 of those away because they're firing out of those windows. There's still a lot of fire coming down on them. So taking away our misses, we're on 5s and 6s this time though because of the range. So take away all the 4s. 1s to 4, and this is all flying into one squad, and it is just a squad, there's no teams in there. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 hits in light cover, 6 is the kills, 4, 5 is shock. So we've got 1, 2 shock after all of that. So I thought that German fire might be pretty effective. It's caused a lot of shock, but not a great deal else. So let's go up to the Americans, see what they do with their turn. Well, the Germans used their dice relatively effectively. The firing just wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be. But anyway, let's see. Over to the Americans. We're on a 6. It's doing nothing for them. A 4 is a senior leader, which is pretty good because I've got them all on anyway. A 2 and 2 1s as well. So we could get a junior leader in there, maybe get that Sherman doing something, and also maybe a team as well. Let's have a little think about this one. Right, so Americans have used their junior, well, a team to get this heavy machine gun up into the building. It can't fire because it's moved. They've also used their senior leader. He has commanded the mortars to fire and the command section to fire as well. And then he's moved. I've already done this just to get it out of the way. He's moved further down here and ordered this section as well to move further down the road as well to try and get in on that flank. They're still out of sight of the Germans. So the Americans have got some firing. They're getting these guys are firing. First of all, they're going to be firing at the garden wall, well, the church wall. So there's now the MG42 and this section here in fire, and also the Sherman is also firing at the same targets, and as is the mortar. So we're going to start with the mortar. 2 rounds, 4, 5, 6 is a hit, reduces any cover by 1. So 2 4s is 2 hits. So that's going to be 1 hit. The Germans are allowed to decide where they want to put them, so they're going to put them both on these rather than on the LMG section itself, on the LMG team. So the first hit is reducing cover, so we're now in 4, 5s and 6s because we're in the open. A 1 is nothing. The second team, sorry, that's another shock, so that takes them up to 3. Sorry, I said section, I meant teams. Put them on these 2 teams. So that's those 2. That's the mortar. Then we've got 6 rifles over here. I keep forgetting the Garants can re-roll their 1s when they miss. So we'll fire in with these first of all over here, and these guys are armed with Garants. So they're only firing 6 because they've got 7 minus 1 because of their shock. So let's roll those. So these are hitting on. Let me just check what range actually. I'm not sure. I think it's effective at this point for them. Yeah, so it is. I checked it earlier. So it's only 5s and 6s are hitting. So that's only 4 hits. Well, I say only 4 hits. There was no 1s, so they didn't get to re-roll those. So the Germans are going to put 1 on there, 1 on there, 1 on there, and then their last one on the least affected team here. So the first team, the LMG team, 6 is a kill this time, 4, 5 shock, 3 nothing. The rifles had taken 2 hits, same again, 6, 5 is 1 shock, and the 2 is nothing. So that takes them up to 2 shock now, and then finally the last one, relatively ineffective firing going up here. The last one is a 5, is another shock on there, so that's 6 overall. So they're doing okay, they're holding on just. So that was their firing. Now we've got the Sherman. So it has 2 weapons which is firing. First of all, it's got the Hold machine gun, which is firing with 6d6. This is definitely at effective range, not close. 5s and 6s. So we've got that's 4 hits in total. So the Germans are going to spread them as they did before. 1 on the LMG, 2 on the team here, and then 1 on this team here. So first of all, 6 is a kill on the LMG, but because we've got leaders in there, I'll just hang on a second to see how many we get. And then 2 hits on those rifles, 2 kills. Wow, that's not good. So that has reduced their number and also reduced their LMG down to 6 dice instead of 5. And then the final one is a 5, so that's another shock on them. So they are now on 7 shock. I'm going to have to count up how many men are in that section. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they're actually pinned as well. See if that junior leader's been hit. 1 or a 2, and he has. 4, no he hasn't. So it's 3 of the rifles. And then we're over to the Sherman's 76mm gun firing itself. This has got an HE of 5. So this is hitting on a 4, 5 or a 6. And not a single hit. Completely missed. That would have just reduced their cover down to 0. But yeah, completely missed. So very, very useful so far. Right, well that was the Americans with their ineffective M4. So we're back to the Germans now. Let's see what they get. 6, 6, they retain the phase. That is good for them. And then they have a 1 and 2, 2. So that's sections and leaders. That might be useful because it might mean that they can reduce shock or get some of these sections moved around into a firing position. So let's just have a think about what they want to do. This one took quite a while to work out actually, because there was a lot of options open to the Germans. I did think about reducing shock of this section, but I've decided not to. And instead got the senior leader, because we know we've got the second phase. We've got the senior leader. He has activated this section to fire down at the command section to try and break them. The 2 LMGs to fire at these sections over here. And then he's also going to get this section as well to fire as well. So this is a separate one. So let's just have a look. We've got first of all got our LMG firing with only 4 dice because he's reduced, and then we've also got the other LMG as well, which is firing with its full 8 dice. And I've got to take off the numbers for the shock, of course. And then we've also got 2 rifles in there as well, so 2 extra. So I should have added an extra one in because I've already taken off for the shock, but never mind that, I did it off camera. So I've taken off another 2 dice for shock as well there. So I'm just going to roll these. These are firing at these Americans here in front of them. 4, 5, 6s to hit. So let's have a look. Actually, I do apologise, I'm going to re-roll that because they are pinned, so they're firing at half their amount as well on top of this. So let me just sort these out. Sorry, I normally do this off camera. I just forgot to do it, but at least it shows you how it's done. So they are actually only firing with 6 dice after all anyway. So let's have a look. 4, 5, 6 are hits though, and we've got 2 hits on basically on 3 American teams. So they're going to put 1 hit on their bazooka, 1 hit on their rifle team. So the rifle team first of all. A 3 is nothing because they're in light cover, and the bazooka, a 2 is also nothing because they're in light cover. So that was a complicated one done. Now we've got our LMGs firing. So the first one is going to be firing over here. They're both firing here actually at close range anyway. We're trying to break the Americans on this flank as much as possible. So let's just see. 4, 5, 6s are hits in this case. So we've got 2, 4, 6 hits there. And so that's going to be 2 hits on each of those teams. 2 on the rifles, 2 on the bazooka, and then also 2 on that flamethrower. So starting with the rifles, 6 is the kills, so that's 5 is a shock, so that takes them up to 4. The Americans really need to get moving at some point because this is just bogging down into a firefight at this point, not what they need. The bazooka team, double 1, nothing, snake eyes, and then finally that flamethrower, 6 and a 4, so that is a shock and a kill as well. So that has either destroyed the team or hit their junior leader. Let's have a look at senior leader actually. There's a junior and a senior in there. So let's see. One and it's hit one of them. No, it hasn't. So it's destroyed the flamethrower team. So that's one threat taken out at least for the Germans. And that is a team destroyed. So we roll on the bad things happen for the Americans. Team wiped out. A 3 is another point off their morale. So I think they're down to 5 now, which is not good for them. The Germans still haven't finished firing. So we're on to the next LMG. So this is firing on 4, 5, 6s, again firing at the same section. So we've got 1, these are the misses. We've actually got quite a lot of hits in there, 6 hits. So again, 2, 4, 6, 7 hits. Did I roll 1 dice less? I think I did. I should have rolled 10 for those. I only rolled 9. So let me just roll that extra 1. So that's another hit. So that is going to be, let's split these up, 2 on the rifles. Well actually it's all going to go on those teams, isn't it? So 4, because the other team is dead now, the flamethrower. So let's have a look. 5 and a 6 we're looking for. 4, 5s and 6s we're looking for. 6 is a kill, 5 is a shock, so that's on the rifles. Should have declared that, but there we go. So that's 1 kill on there, so I'm just going to put that 6 to remind me for when it comes to hitting those officers. And then the hits on the bazookas is 3, 3, 2 and a 1, so no effect. But we've got that 1 hit. Let's see if it's on one of their leaders. No, it isn't, so it's just one of the rifles. I'll take one of those off in a second. Let me just swap some of these over. So there we go, that's our rifles kills. And then finally for the Germans we've got the section up in the building. Now the question is, do they fire down again on that command section, or do they keep up the fire on these ones down here and try and break them? It's a tough one. Tell you what, they're going to swap fire and they're going to fire down at these over here. So hitting on 4, 5s and 6s because of the range, that's not as good as they were hoping for. Let's see. Well, these SS trainees are certainly getting some training. So that's 6 hits in total, 3 on each of the teams. So first on the rifles, 6 of the kills, 4, 5 shock. So that's another kill and a shock. So again, let me just knock one of those fellas down so we remember how many we got. So him, well, he just appeared. And then second one on the bazookas. That's 2 more shock, 3 more shock in fact, and that takes them up to 5. Oh, I wonder if we are at a point of at least being pinned. Let's see if that junior or senior is hit anyway. 1 or 2 it is. No. So it's one of the rifles. Let's have a quick count of how many
we've got left over here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 men, and they have 11, so they are now pinned, unfortunately for them. Okay, so the Germans retain their phase, so they get another go. Let's see what they get. 5 is a command point, so a chain of command point. That's good, because they're hoping to be able to ambush that Sherman at some point. And then they've got a 3, 2 2s, and a 1, so that is a really good spread. They'll probably pretty much do what they did before. Maybe be able to reduce some shock as well while they're doing it. Okay, so the Germans have used their junior leader to reduce shock here. It's not been great, but it's working its way down and stopping them getting pinned at some point in the future. But they are then going to be commanded by the senior leader, who is getting everybody to fire against the section in the building to the left of the church, the 2 LMGs, and also the section at the front. So we're going to start with them. Section of the front, firing at the same target. Let's have a look. 4, 5, 6 is a 15, and these are pinned, so I've reduced all there and got shock and everything, so they're completely reduced now. So we've got 5 hits, so that's going to be 3 on the rifles, 2 on that bazooka. So we'll do the bazooka first of all. So that's 2 3s. That's nothing because they're in light cover. Then we've got 3 hits on those rifles, and a 4 and a 1, so that's another shock. So they're already on 6, that takes them up to 7, that's 12. They have yet to break. Let me just count up how many there is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 men in total there. So they need 18 to break those. This is what the Germans are going for. Unfortunately, the Americans have got bogged down in a bit of a firefight here, which is not great for them because it's not what they need. They need to be moving forward. They've almost destroyed one section, but they really need to get shifting. So anyway, we're on to our next LMG, firing at the same target. They're just trying to pour fire into this just to really try to break up this attack. But that is only 3 hits this time, so 2 on the rifles and then 1 on that bazooka. So we'll go with the bazooka first. A 3 does nothing, and the rifles, 2 rifles. 4 and 5 is 2 more shock. So they're inching closer to that break number, which is not great for them. Then we've got the second LMG firing again, 4, 5s and 6s to hit, and that is 3 misses, so that's a lot of hits in there. So we've got 7 hits, so 4 on the rifles, 3 on the bazooka. So our bazooka has no effect, 3 and 2 1s, so happy for them. And then the rifles, 3, 3, 2 and 2, so no effect on them as well, an ineffective LMG there. But then we've got our final firing, and this is coming down from the building over there. They are firing again at the same target, so we're looking at 5s and 6s to hit here. So there's not that many in there, so let's just get those out rather than the misses, because there's 5 in total, so that's not great. So let me just clear that dice tray out. And so that's going to be 2 hits on the bazooka, 3 on the rifles. So the bazooka, 4 and a 1, that is another shock. That takes them up to 6. So they're now on 14 shock in total. And then we've got 3 hits on those rifles. And that is 2 more shock. God. Okay, so I'm going to have to do a count up here, I think. So we're now currently on 16 shock in total. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 men. So yeah, they're okay. They are pinned, but 3 more shock and then they will break. But they're just holding on at the moment with grim determination. Well, the Americans, as I say, are a bit bogged down in this firefight at the moment. They really need to get moving. So let's just see what their dice gives them. 6 is doing nothing on its own. They've got 2 4s, which is pretty good because they've got a couple of senior leaders out, so they can do something. And then a 2 and a 1, which is teams and or sections, so, or a section or even another junior leader. So let's just have a think about that as well. Right, the Americans have done quite a bit with their roles. They've used the junior leader to start firing with the Sherman again, so that's just going to blat away over here. Their senior leader, the lieutenant, ordered this section into the building here, so they've come forward. He ordered the command section to fire covering fire against this building. This -1 for the Germans firing out of there.
Then their sergeants over here ordered the LMG to move into the building here and to be able to fire out, and then also has run up the road and ordered this LMG to start firing as well down here. So we've got quite a bit of firing, and also finally the lieutenant also ran back to the main bulk of the troops and has ordered the mortar to fire as well. So I'm going to start with the mortar. 4, 5, 6 are these guys here first of all, so that's one hit. They're in the open because it reduces cover by 1, so 1, no effect. Then we've got the LMG up in the building, that is firing down again on these. So it's HMG actually, isn't it? It's a tripod mounted. So let's have a look, see what they get. They're hitting on 5s and 6s because of the range. So we have only 5 hits. So there are 3 teams in there. So that's going to be 2 hits on that team, 2 hits on that team, and then 1 hit on the LMG team. So we'll start over here with the rifle team. 2 hits, 6 and a 5 is a kill and a shock. So let's just put those shock and the kill down, so just to remember. That's not a good start for the Germans already. Then we've got 2 hits on the next team there, so that's a 5, that's another shock. So I'll have to count up how many figures are in there in a second. See how many kills we get in total, and then we'll see if that junior leader is a hit. And then the final hit on the LMG team, 6, that's another kill. So that takes them down to 3, so let me just put that there. And on a 1, we've hit the junior leader. They've hit the junior leader. What happens to him? A 6 is he is wounded, so he is down to 1 initiative, but that's a bad things happen roll. So one of their guys survives, but that LMG chap is off. And then, let me just have a quick count. So we've got 7 shock, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 men in there. Right, let me first of all do that bad things happen roll for the junior leader being wounded. A 5 on a junior leader wounded is a point off the German morale. I think that might be the first one actually. So that's one of their morale is down. They're now down to 8 instead of 9. But then we've got the tank firing. So first of all, its hull mounted LMG is a 5 and a 6 to hit. At this range, that's a healthy number of hits out of 6. That's 4 hits. Spread across again 3 teams. So 1 on the LMG, 1 on that rifles, and then 1 on the team there actually, because there's only 1 left, but they've got the least. No, I'm going to put it on there because there's 4 men in that team, only 1 man in that team. So first of all, LMG, what happens to them? 6, that's a kill. So I'm just going to have to mark that. So there we go. That could be a hit on the junior leader again. So then we've got the 5. This is on the 1 team, so that is another shock. So that's a 5. That takes them up to 4 now. And then we've got 2 hits on this team here, and that's a 3 and a 2. So that's no effect. Now we've got the Sherman firing its HE. All this is happening at once, so I'm going to do all the kills first and then work out if the junior leader is hit. So this is hitting on 4, 5s and 6s because they're always effective. They're always at close range, should I say, for tanks. So that's 2 hits. So the Germans decide to put these 1 on that LMG, on the LMG team, and then 1 on the rifle team that's got 4 in it. So we'll do the rifle team. Reduces cover, so they're in the open. 5, 6 is a kill. So that's a kill. That's another kill there. And then we have the other hit on that other team. 5, 6 is another kill, so that kills that team, reduces our shock though, gets rid of their shock at least, with some bad things happen. Let's see if there's a hit on our junior leader. A 1 and it is. No it isn't, so it's another rifle. They are not broken because they are on 4 shock and 4 men in there, but a team has just been wiped out, so that is another bad things happen for the Germans. Let's have a look. It is a 5 on a team wiped out. That's another point, so they're now down 2 points from their starting, so they're down to 7 now. So that wasn't a bad round of firing from the Americans, given that they couldn't do a great deal really. Well, as I say, this is proving tough for the Americans. The problem is they've got bogged down in that firefight against the Germans. So, and there's a lot of German firepower in that church. Right, so 6 is doing nothing. 5, that gives them that chain of command points. So they now can use that if they need to. And then they have 2 1s and a 3. So, ooh, that's a bit of a mix. It's not great, but they'll probably be able to do quite a bit with that. Well, one thing I've noticed and forgotten about is that HMGs actually reduce cover by 1. So I've not been doing that, but it's only really the Americans who've got the HMG. The MG42 is an LMG on a tripod, so I'm not allowing that. But anyway, over on the German side, they've converted into a 4, and it's their senior leader. He's basically getting this section over here in this house to fire down. Again, the Americans. This section is going to fire at those Americans that have just appeared in the ruined house just over the river. Then the 2 LMGs are also firing here. So that's his 4 activations. So I'm going to start first of all with the ones in the house up here. These are under covering fire, so they are now firing on a -1. So they're actually hitting on a 6 rather than a 5 or a 6 now. So we're going to start with those. Anyway, so we're only looking for 6s here, and that is only 3 hits after all that firing. So that's a good reason to put covering fire down, and it's something that I forgot to do earlier on in the game. But here we are. So that's going to be 2 hits on the rifles, 1 on the bazooka. So the bazooka, first of all, a 2 is nothing, and then 2 hits on those rifles, 6 and a 3, so that is a kill, but no shock. So let's just see if it's their junior leader or senior leader, because he's kicking around there as well. No, it isn't. So it's just one of the rifles. But does that change their morale status? Let's have a look. We've got 10, 16. Now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 men. 1 more kill or 1 more shock on them and they are broken. So the Germans are going to be drilling down on those, quite obviously. But then we've got the other section over here firing at the Americans that have just appeared in that building. They're all firing. These are firing at effective rate, close range, 4, 5, 6s to hit, but they are in heavy cover, those Americans. So getting rid of everything that isn't a hit. Let's draw everything out. That was a 3 that was pulled out there, so there's those gone. And we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 hits. And I'm going to allow this on across the entire lot simply because they're not yet at the windows. The building is half ruined over here, so I'm not going to count them as at windows. So if they can all fire, they can all be hit, is what I'm trying to say. So this is just going to go across the entire lot. 6 is the kills, 5 is shock. I'm just kind of thinking on the fly here. So 1 shock and 2 kills. So let's see if that is on their junior leader who's over in there. 1 or a 2 and he's hit. A 2, yes he is. So what happens to him? A 4, he is lightly wounded, so he is taken out. He's reduced, should I say, and then we've also lost a infantryman as well over there. So I'm just going to take one of these guys out. Just put a marker on our junior leader, so that's him. So that's a hit and a kill, and they've also got 1 shock as well. So we're going to do another bad things happen there for the Americans on this one, because they've just had a junior leader wounded. So see what happens to him. 3 on the bad things happen for a junior leader wounded is another point off the Americans. So they're now down to 4 on their morale. So that's not good, because that reduces their dice. And then we've got the 2 LMGs firing. So we'll start with the first one here. And as I say, these are not counted as HMGs, they're LMGs, just on tripods. So the first one, and these guys, 4, 5, 6s is to hit in the first case. That is 4 hits, 2 on the bazooka, 2 on the rifles. So the bazooka has taken 1 and a 2 is nothing, and the rifles 3 and a 2, so that's also nothing as well. And then we have our final LMG firing, so this is again another 10 dicer. So let's have a look. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, there we go, that is the dice. There's too many dice there. And this is hitting on 4, 5s and 6s, so
Getting rid of the 1s, 2s and the 3s. That leaves us with 3. And bazooka, first of all, just 1 hit. A 3 is nothing, then 2 hits on the rifles. And that's a 5 and a 3, so that's another shock. Well, you know what that does? That has actually broken them. So they are going to flee. So now we've got to roll for section broken. That's a 3 on the bad things happen for the section breaks is -2 points. So the Americans have lost 3 points in total there. They are now down to, I think, 2. And I think that may be the game over for them. But let's just have a little think about it. Okay, this is the state of play at the moment, and the Americans are just going to start falling back. With 2 force morale, it means they're only rolling 2 dice. As an attacking force, they are completely blunted at this point. They would just be taking more and more damage until they were completely destroyed. So, game over. The Germans have won. There's literally no point turning it into a slogging match from that point of view. So, let's have a quick look at what happened. The Germans were able to get their heavy firepower in and around the church, and despite this section here taking a real hammering and being reduced down to 4 men with 4 shock, and even the LMG team over here taking hits, they were able to hold it. The Americans were able to get their way up into the building opposite, which would have helped had there been a lot more casualties on the German side. They could have possibly close assaulted from there. And everything else was kind of stuck down in this point here, really. I spoke to Joe about it. I mean, the Sherman was in a pretty good position to start battering away, and it wasn't doing a great deal of work. It was more of a psychological thing than anything else. Perhaps it would have been better if they brought it up a bit closer, but there wasn't really much point. It was probably in the best position it could be. I spoke to Joe, and I did say to him before I played this game that this looks like it's going to be a tough test for the Americans anyway, and I think it is. Is it overpowered for the Germans? Possibly not. I think it's about right, to be honest. The Germans just were basically waited and then were able just to fill that church out with lots of weaponry, which is, you know, what I would have done. I would have just held on. Don't show your hand for a bit. Let the Americans show their attack, and then just basically just fill it out and go from there, really. Very interesting game, very different to what I normally play. I don't normally have such wide open areas. Obviously, I think it's originally intended for 28mm. I'm playing it in 15, so there's going to be a slight difference there just in footprint size of houses and things. So that might make quite a difference in the finished version. But I'm very happy to have play tested for this for Joe, and I'm big shout out to him for letting me have a go at it as well. And if you do have a go at it, let me know in the comments below, so at least I can see them, and Joe probably can if he watches the video. Just let us know how you got on with it and what tactical challenges you came up against. As it's part of a campaign, it does mean that the Americans probably would get a second chance at trying to crack this particular nut, which may be different. It may be worthwhile, you know, pushing down that flank all the way and then coming in from the rear, being a bit more cautious than I was. But I like to push forward. That's the way I play games. You may be different. You probably are. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed playing it and testing it. If you have, please do leave me a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out my Patreon, check out me on Twitter, check out on Facebook, all the usual places for Storm of Steel, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.